What's up, everybody? Welcome to another installment of That Science and Nature Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Howard, and joining me this week, we have Becky Hansis-O'Neill.
How's it going?
And Webster Heffern.
Hi, everyone.
So, after many shows in the studio this week, or this semester, we are recording one last final episode on podcast equipment, graciously brought in by Ray. I overscheduled the number of episodes we were going to do. We were supposed to end last week with the show, but I had one more we want to do for the holidays, so here we are recording on just podcast equipment. So, I had a great show for you today. We're going to cover the news like we have not done for the last 2 weeks. We're going to do topic of the show, which is all about science and nature holidays, since it is the holiday time of that time of year. And we'll do outside of science as we always do. So hopping to the news first, we have 3 stories we're covering, but there's one honorable mention I wanted to just launch into. You didn't necessarily have to read this, Becky and Webster. I just wanted to bring it up because it was funny, and I saw it on multiple news outlets, so I was like, I have to kind of mention it. So this is reported on Gizmodo, but also on NPR and another site. Basically, there's a tomato that went missing on a space station is the easiest way to describe this. And this apparently was very important news for the science world this past week. Basically, the ISS, which is the International Space Station, is doing this experiment where they're like growing fruits, in one case tomatoes, and I guess all of the workers on the space station were given tomatoes in a bag. I don't remember why exactly they were, but the idea is they weren't supposed to eat it just in case it like grew mold or anything on it. And I guess one person lost their tomato and it went missing for like 8 months, and everyone was like, "Oh, you probably just ate it and forgot about it." He's like, "No, I didn't, I swear." And this is like a big deal for like NASA for like several months. Like, what happened to this tomato? So they eventually found it. I guess it's just some like nook or cranny in the space station, and it was like a big event. It's like, see, I didn't actually eat it, said the guy who works at the International Space Station.
Was it moldy or gross?
It was. I don't think it was moldy. They didn't say anything about it in the story, but literally this was on multiple news websites. So I was like, there's not really a conversation there, but it was just like a funny story.
Well, if it weren't moldy, I mean, that's almost a piece of news in and of itself that the space station
I can't confirm
clean,
if there was or was not mold. So they just did not report any mold in the story. That maybe they just didn't think it was important. I guess the important part was they found the tomato that went missing.
Given the weird rapport that you build when you're in a small team in a remote location, and I'm talking about like Costa Rica, let alone if you're in outer space, I feel like finding the tomato is probably a big deal. There's probably cheering, "Guys, I found it!" You know.
Just have like a party, like we found the tomato party. I guess you got to celebrate the little victory, so it's a nice little happy story there.
Space is also pretty boring from what I gather.
That's true.
So.
Yeah.
That is very true. Okay, so that was the honorable mention story. So now onto the actual first story. This comes to us from Futurism.com. This is all about scientists building biological robots from human cells. So basically, some researchers have figured out how to engineer what they're referring to as tiny robots, and they're calling them anthrobots, made from human cells that could potentially help heal wounds, regenerate tissues, or even potentially treat diseases. So I'm not exactly sure on the science of this, largely because the way they explain it just makes it sound like cells, like the building blocks of life in our body, are just sort of building other cells. But Webster, do you understand this any better than I do?
No, because I didn't read the primary article this time. And from what I gathered from the secondary article, it was just like, yeah, we just kind of assembled these cells together and they started doing things and we let them do their thing and they walked up to these wounds and they triggered the healing of these wounds. I was like, okay, that's kind of an odd approach to doing science, but
yeah. When I was reading it, I was also like, I need some details. Like, is there a string of just DNA in here with some good like growth factors that are getting?
The one thing I did notice was that they had the cilia of the cells all pointed in the same direction, and then they started kind of walking around.
Oh.
So, and I believe these were cells that in prior studies had been used to trigger healing, but now they had them walking. So
if you don't know, cilia are these little hair-like structures that exist on the cells. They kind of help them move. They also help, I think, with like filtering things out, like respiratory. You have cilia in your cells.
Oh yeah.
Help like
your
filter
gut,
things in your
yeah.
So yeah, that's what those are for. So it's kind of substantial that they can get the cells to move other than just exist. But yeah, they're referring to them as anthrobots, like anthropological robots, because they're biologically relevant. But again, the article doesn't really mention very much how they work, just that they kind of can work. Have there been other instances of like kind of doing machine-like things with human cells that you know of, Webster? Again, I'm picking your brain on this a lot.
It sounds like a familiar concept to me, to be honest. But usually I feel like there's been some sort of scaffold, some sort of artificial scaffold that the cells then eat away, and then they replace the damaged area with healthy tissue. So this, I think, is definitely the first time where you have an autonomously walking, healing entity that was made in the lab.
Okay. It sounds like they're fairly short-lived, though. From what the article says, they only are around for about 60 days and they biodegrade. So they're not permanently a part of your body. Once they kind of do their job, they kind of just die, is my understanding from this article.
Yeah, and I started looking at the article a little bit, and apparently they're epithelial tissue from the lungs. That's their origin.
Oh.
So lung tissue can trigger healing of other tissue. Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know much about that. I mean, I guess it makes sense that it's epithelial tissue. That seems like a good catch-all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
epithelial
I know.
lines everything
I
in
think
the body.
angiotensin and ACE2, those are highly involved in releasing a lot of kind of healing factors.
Okay. Well, cool. They also have not figured out any way to self-replicate, so you don't have to worry about the potential biobots or anthrobots like taking over your body or having some sort of like sci-fi nightmare scenario. So they just kind of degrade. They haven't figured out how to reproduce yet. Though I suppose that would probably be good for them to figure out at some point if they're going to have some sort of long-lasting medical application.
Yeah. Well, the idea, I think, was to take your own cells and then build you these bots and then have them walk up in your tissue and fit into the appropriate niche and heal it up.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like it'd be good for things like burns, surgical
Yeah,
sites.
burn sounds like a great use.
Yeah.
But I will say, on its own, my almost third-degree burn healed quite nicely.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of want to see it. In the
Here,
beginning of the
here.
semester,
Alright.
we saw this
Oh, yeah.
awful burn.
It is gone.
That looks wonderful.
I cannot see it
Yeah.
from here.
It looks very healthy.
Okay,
It's
cool.
good
I'll take
tissues.
your
Practically
word for
no
it.
scar.
That's good.
Yep.
That's good. I'm
I
glad
was very worried about it when you first showed it,
Yeah,
so
that-
I'm very pleased how nice it looks.
Yeah, back in September, that was pretty rough. So the human body does heal out over time. That's cool. All right, so hopefully we'll get more information on the anthrobiobot scenario, but until then, I guess we're kind of left with just the general details, but probably there will be more in the future months and years. All right, the next article, this comes to us from Nature.com. This is all about will the first global climate deal on food work. So COP28 recently just met in the last, I think, week or so, and that stands for the United Nations Climate Change Conference. Basically, a bunch of nations coming together to figure out how can we address climate change, the constant, ever-existing problem that we need to solve, and unfortunately don't take as much action as we probably should. But the big thing, this article is basically talking about that they're going to start implementing regulations on food and agricultural emissions. So basically what comes out of producing the foods that we eat from farms, slaughterhouses, and those sorts of things. But the article largely talks about the problem of implementing this, one of which being that we're not factoring in the greenhouse gas emissions that come from transporting all of these things, since we move food around the country a lot, not just the United States, but in other countries as well. So what did we think about this initial sort of, I guess, step into trying to regulate fossil fuels related to food production?
I don't know much about how well regulation works. I'm always skeptical. I think a lot of nations just don't follow through. Even if they try to follow through, there's a lot of resistance domestically. But I'm delighted that this is coming to attention now, and I wish it would come to more attention. I think a lot of people don't know the impact of their own food. I think one of the best things we could do for food in terms of like making sure that people are eating food that's better for the environment is raise awareness. Like you think about something like avocados. Avocados got a bad name for a while because it was like, did you know that a single avocado uses 80 gallons of water? Well, 80 gallons of water is not very much for a food item compared to like a ribeye steak, which uses 1,600 gallons of water.
That's a lot.
Yeah. If people were just aware that of the water impact, of the carbon impact, of their meat consumption or whatever else, I think they might make healthier choices.
Yeah, I know just in recent memory, increases in food prices, I've laid off the beef quite a lot. I don't buy it hardly ever anymore. Probably good for the environment.
Yeah, probably.
I haven't even noticed that because I've been eating so little beef lately.
Huh. So you mentioned like domestic issues about implementing this. Do you have like ideas about what kinds of issues?
What would come up?
Yeah.
I just see lobbies getting in the way. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how they would. They have all kinds of clever tricks, but
I mean, it's a especially in the western United States, so much of our rangeland is used for cattle production and beef production. I think you'd have a high demand for beef, as well as what Webster just said. You're going to have like representatives for cattle.
Big cattle.
Big cattle.
So there are conversion programs that are available to help people convert their farms from livestock to plant-based food.
So I think that would work in the Midwest and Eastern United States, but how people are doing it out like in New Mexico and Idaho, where I'm from, is you actually lease land from the government. It's not yours. You can't convert it to anything other than rangeland.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah. So you're leasing from BLM or the Forest Service. Your cattle go out there and graze, and you move them. They're called allotments, the areas where you're allowed to graze. But that's not yours to change. So if there were regulations or demand for beef went down, you'd have to just really change that business model.
That sounds like a kind of silly business model. I would think it would be, if it's the Forest Service, I would think it'd be better for the land if somebody were to convert it away from livestock.
Double-edged sword there too, because we've killed so many large ungulates out west that cows are actually important for fuels reduction for forest fires. So they're actually used as a management tool, since we don't have as many bison or anything like that out there. And there's a whole science devoted to rangeland sciences and all the nonsense that comes. Well, I shouldn't say nonsense, but all the subtleties that come with that, right? Because cows don't necessarily graze like a bison. How often do you need to move them? What other kind of damage can they do? But they're definitely used as a rangeland management tool to mitigate like fire risk.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
So the land that you're talking about being leased, there's no way to physically buy that land. It's one of those deals where it's not for sale.
Right.
Okay.
We own it.
Okay.
As the public.
Gotcha. So there's no dollar value that could change their minds, in theory.
Probably not. And I don't know if I would want the Bureau of Land Management or the Forest
Service.
Service
I'm not
do
saying
that.
I want them to do this. I'm just saying, like, it's sort of like the old economic adage of like everything is a price. Like, how high could you go before someone would willingly do something for you?
Yeah, I am not sure. I don't know, because a lot of, at least when I lived in rural Idaho, the people using the allotments were small family businesses, and then the cows would get sold to a bigger business that send them to a feedlot to fatten them up, which I imagine is where a lot of the emissions are coming, is when you're feeding them to bulk them up. And you're giving them artificial feed. They're not grazing on the range anymore. So you had to grow that food outside of the natural ecosystem.
But that's why there's the money in the first step, because you get to sell it to the second step. So
yeah, I mean, maybe that's the thing, is maybe we're buying it locally from ranchers, range-fed animals as opposed to feedlot animals. So maybe skipping that step. I don't know.
Yeah, from reading this, my one thought is just, I don't know how you'd convince America to eat less meat, besides like the general, like, it's healthier, but like I feel like it's just so ingrained in our culture of eating meat. Same with alcohol.
yeah,
My beef consumption has gone way down for health reasons, and then cost on top of that.
yeah, but you're very right, Jeremy, that like any of our staple foods, it's always a meat-based product.
Yeah.
St. Louis toasted ravioli, like.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be harder for me to get rid of dairy, pork, and chicken.
Dairy I could never do.
Yeah.
But dairy's not actually so bad.
No, I think there's probably also a lot of good reasons to keep dairy in terms of just worldwide health, in terms of calories and nutrition per unit of food.
Yeah. Particularly for calcium sources. I think that it's just like there are healthy dairy options and there are less healthy, like ice cream versus like yogurt or something.
Don't take away my ice cream,
Oh,
Jeremy.
no, trust me. I love ice cream, so I would never do that to anybody. I'm just thinking broadly in terms of like changes that people could make. Because, yeah, just the meat identity of America is a big thing. All right, well, we'll see how that plays out as well in the coming months and years. So last article, this comes to us from good old BBC. And this is all talking about the coral reef and how divers are using antibiotics to save sick corals. So this story starts with an individual, Reginald Beckford, who basically was a scuba diving instructor and sort of found out that from his scuba diving lessons and working in the coral reefs, that the coral are dying, which is not news in and of itself, but more of that it was kind of given him a call to action. So basically he's working with other scientists to basically apply what is a paste of sorts to basically put on the coral, which can kind of help them with this sickness, which is referred to as, it has a longer name, stony coral tissue loss disease, which is shorthand SCTLD. So stony coral tissue loss disease is a big problem plaguing coral, and it seems like this paste overall can kind of help them in part with managing the coral sickness. So
where did that bacteria come from? Do either of you know?
I do not.
Well,
I don't actually
they
understand.
haven't even confirmed that it's a bacterial pathogen.
Oh, and they're just putting antibiotic paste on it?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Okay. How would they confirm it?
They would, putting the antibiotic paste alone and showing that works doesn't confirm it, because you could be killing some like microbe that helps with the infection. You would have to show that it's causal. So you'd have to isolate the bacterium and then have a healthy one and infect it and show that by infecting it with this bacterium, this causes the disease. There's like 3 major steps to proving pathogenesis, and that's, of course, the most major one.
So they might be treating a secondary infection.
They could be treating a secondary infection. They could be treating a partner infection, something like that.
Okay. So that was part of the story, and then there's sort of a second individual who came in the back half of the article. A former teacher, Arinthia Baker, basically moved to the islands because, kind of like with Reginald, they were sort of called to action by the coral dying, and what she's helping out with is basically breaking off pieces of coral to bring to the lab and kind of grow like little tissue samples to basically like preserve the coral. Because I don't know much about coral biology, but from what I gather from reading this article, it seems like you can take a little piece of it, grow it in the lab, and sort of like replant it.
Yeah, it's
sorts.
somewhat vegetative that way.
Yeah, which is interesting because coral, if you didn't know this, coral are not plants. They're actually animals. They're very ancestral versions of animals, but in terms of the characteristics of life that make it an animal, they are actually animals.
I think they're the simplest metazoans there are.
Yes, they are very, I use the word simple in quotes because they still have a complex system that needs to be learned about. But yeah, they are a more ancestral version of animals like we are. So we don't think of ourselves being related to coral, but we are all both animals. So yeah, that was very cool in terms of seeing sort of this call to action from people to help out the coral.
They did mention the risk of antibiotic resistance arising. And that's, of course, what I study in the lab. I'm thinking about, that'd be really interesting to study all the ways that coral could evolve antibiotic resistance as opposed to the microbes that I normally study. Or coral, or the microbe that causes the disease. Coral is fine, but the microbe that causes the disease might be very different.
I know nothing about like the microfauna coral community. Zero zilch, nada. Like in terms of bacteria that just naturally live on them.
Yeah, I think it'd be a cool thing to like be involved with. I mean, before the show we were talking about scuba diving, and you want to get into scuba diving, right?
Yeah, but if my ear with the healed eardrum break will let me. But
okay.
Yeah, you could switch to coral, Webster.
Yeah, no,
That'd be so
I was
fun.
thinking about this. I could do marine microbiology. That would be so much fun. I would just have to probably live somewhere other than St. Louis.
Yeah.
Being near the ocean would be more convenient.
Marine biology, St. Louis.
Well, who knows? There might be some cool diving around here
there might
for
be.
cyanobacteria or something.
Yeah. Things to think about for long-term careers. I mean, that is a cool job to have. I mean, I think 2 of these people are volunteers. They're primarily scuba people, but they're kind of helping out with this, which is very cool. It's a cool crossover between the community and the science community. All right, and I think that's going to pretty much wrap up the news. So now we're going to go into topic of the show, and as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's the holiday time, so we have our Christmas coming up, we have our Hanukkah, all of those fun holidays that have, more religious or just sort of the commercial significance. But we're a science and nature show, so I thought it apt to basically go through a bunch of science and nature holidays throughout the calendar year. And I went to holidaysmart.com, which apparently has everything you need to know about holidays, and basically found a bunch that we're going to talk about. So we're just going to talk about, or go through a bunch of them, kind of see like what this holiday is about, if it's kind of baloney and stupid, or does it actually have better significance? Because, I mean, particularly as Americans, we have a lot of holidays for random things most people don't know about. Like, I'm sure if you turn on the radio, you're like, oh, it's National Hot Dog Day, or, some other holiday that you haven't heard of. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's cool, I guess. But, like, do you really think about that during the year?
Speaking of meat staples.
Yeah, speaking of meat staples. So I guess before I go through the list, I just want to ask, in relation to the topic of the show, what do you think makes for a good themed science and nature holiday?
Organizations to actually promote it and market it, because otherwise it's just on a piece of paper somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'd really want it to be announced from somebody higher in power. Like if the president gets up there and says happy, Groundhog Day, obviously, but
Cyanobacteria Day.
Yeah, happy Oak Tree Day. People suddenly are much more aware than if some random guy on the street says, "Did you know today is Oak Tree Day?" Oak Tree Day.
I feel like that's how I find out about those holidays. It's mostly from the radio station. It's just like, by the way, it's National whatever day. So go do this thing. I'm like, cool. And then I forget about it 5 minutes later. Okay, so there's way more than the ones we're going to talk about, but I picked out 2 for each month. And I tried my best to pick out ones that are a little more obscure, but I think interesting enough of note. So like I skipped over like Earth Day and like those ones, like because everyone knows about those. So we're going to start all the way back in January. So even though it's the start of the year, these are coming up soon. So you can think about this next month for when you're planning your big holiday outings. So the first one coming up on January 10th is Houseplant Appreciation Day. This is all about building a taste in the outdoors by bringing houseplants inside. And things you kind of do to celebrate is, of course, get some houseplants. Make sure you give them some love. Maybe give a friend a houseplant. Houseplants have lots of good, qualities. So they help with mental health. They reduce noise pollution. Those sorts of things. So any thoughts on Houseplant Appreciation Day? Do either of you have houseplants?
Yeah. I usually can keep a pothos alive for about 1.5 years.
What's a pothos?
It's one of the easiest houseplants you can get because
Okay.
it's tolerant to you forgetting to water it. They can be in relatively shady areas. They're a little bit viney.
Okay. Are cactus easy to grow or
I
maintain?
have no idea.
All right.
Cacti are pretty easy. I managed to kill them still. I'm not good with any houseplants.
So much for Houseplant Appreciation Day.
Well, no. We have a lot of houseplants, but
Okay.
my husband takes care of most of them.
When I was dating my husband, we saw some commercial on TV where a guy gave his date a cactus, and I said, "That's stupid." And apparently, he'd already gotten me a cactus for Valentine's Day.
Oh, whoops.
Sorry, husband.
That's funny. Okay, coming up on January 24th is Mobile Phone Recycling Day. So that's pretty literal. It's literally just kind of all about taking not only your cell phones, but your old other technology that's outdated and kind of just lying around as junk and recycling it.
That's a good one.
I think
That's
is
a really
important.
good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have like crap like that in drawers, and I'm like, I know I'm not supposed to throw this away, but I'm not sure what to do with it.
Yeah, I have like an old printer lying around. I'm going to have an old cell phone because I'm getting a new one for Christmas. That'll be perfect.
Yeah, I think of just also everyone goes through phones so quickly these days in terms of if you upgrade every year. So it's like people must have so many phones in their drawers. But apparently it is sponsored by the Jane Goodall Institute. So it actually has some good backing, like the
Oh, that
Jane
makes
Goodall.
sense.
So
Because there's some mineral that we need for cell phones that is destroying gorilla habitat to mine. I don't remember what it is.
okay.
Is it
But-
lithium? No.
Could be. I don't know. But cell phone recycling is tied to gorilla conservation efforts. I remember
okay.
when I was in Albuquerque, the biopark was doing something like that.
Okay. That makes sense. Jane Goodall link. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Let's see. Coming up on February 2nd is World Wetlands Day. So it's kind of a national day talking about wetlands, which are a very important part of our ecosystem that are, if I remember correctly, are constantly being destroyed. Like we have like pretty much no more wetlands anymore overall. So it's a good awareness day.
Yeah, I don't know if February is the best time to celebrate it, but that's when we celebrate it,
Yeah.
I guess.
Maybe if you're really into duck hunting.
Yeah, I do have a friend that's really into duck hunting, so maybe he
So
knows more about it.
I think springtime is like they do a lot of duck hunting.
What's a better month, you think?
Yeah.
I would put it in like June, so people associate the wetland with like beautiful summertime as opposed to dreary late winter.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, February 22nd is Wildlife Conservationist Day. So it's not so much about like protecting the animals; it's more about like honoring those who are in conservation.
No one has ever given me presents for that. Someone give me some nice things.
Yes, it is a day to appreciate those who work every day and have a passion for saving and protecting our wildlife. So ways to celebrate that: you can donate to conservation organizations, you can visit the zoo and learn more about animals and conservation, and also contact your legislators about conservation issues. So.
Or give gifts to the wildlife biologists
Or
in
give
your
gifts
life.
to the wildlife biologists. Exactly. Anything to feel appreciated is very good. Quick sidebar. I got my first thank you card as a TA, and I've TA'd for like 6 years.
Aw.
My students gave me one in my afternoon
Congrats.
section for anatomy. So I felt very humbled and very appreciative. So that was very nice.
That's sweet.
That's very nice.
So I always say, like to anybody, like, yeah, people do really appreciate that when you recognize them for their work, or you show gratitude. So in any field, so just letting you know, it feels very good on the receiving end. So
yeah.
quick
Give us
sidebar.
cards. Give us
Yes.
presents. Tell us we're pretty.
Yeah, or that we didn't totally screw up your lab. That's always nice too.
Oh, yeah. If you're my student, don't say that. But random members of the public, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I tell my students, like, in their evals, like, you can let me know if something was bad, but you need to tell me, like, how I can make it better. Don't just say it was bad, because everyone can do that.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, if the review is intended to make me cry, that's not very helpful. But if it's very specific of, like, things that could make it better, that is helpful.
Yes. All right, so this next one is now in March. This is a very interesting one. On, what day is it? March 10th is Festival of Life in the Cracks Day, which is a day all about talking about plant life that grows in the weird sort of in-between spaces. So it's kind of an appreciation for how plant life can be anywhere.
It just makes me think of the little eyeball moss in the movie Labyrinth that, like, watches her as she's running down the maze.
Okay, I have not seen Labyrinth.
Add it to your movie list.
Okay, I will. What is the movie about?
David Bowie is in it, and there's a lot of musical numbers.
Okay, I'm already intrigued.
What
is the eyeball then?
Jim Henson. So girl goes through a labyrinth. She has to solve the labyrinth to get her baby brother back from David Bowie, who's like the evil goblin king.
Okay.
And there's all kinds of weird little creatures. And one of them is moss growing in the cracks in the labyrinth that has little eyeballs on the end of the stalks, and it watches you.
Interesting. Is this like an 80s movie, 90s movie?
I think it's 80s.
Definitely 80s.
It does sound very 80s. But yeah, it's kind of a quirky one, kind of appreciating life for the places that it can exist. Let's see. Oh, March 20th, we have what's called Meat Out, which is basically a day celebrating going meatless, like celebrating like, plants, fruits, vegetables, and stuff. So kind of going a little more green in that sense. So a good connection to, being more aware of climate change and how food impacts that.
Time to bust out the veggie enchilada recipe.
Yes. I feel like that could be like a fun department thing to do. Like we have like a Meat Out. Like,
oh, that'd be great.
That would be fun. Like, or a BGSA thing.
Yeah.
Ooh, actually, I'm going to write that down because that's a good idea. All right. Bear with me, audience, as I actually write that down. BGSA Meat Out event. Okay, because I'm going to forget that. All right. That was Meat Out. And then coming up on April 9th, we have Catch and Release Day, which is a day all about fishing. So most people, well, not most people, but many people who like to fish, probably overfish or catch more than they need to. If, I know people do it for food, but also some people just do it for sport and kind of catching and showing off their fish. So I think Catch and Release Day, it's a good, public awareness kind of thing that you have impacts on fish and you want to throw them back so other people can catch them.
I'm cynical about this.
Okay, go ahead. No, I'm fine with the cynicism.
I haven't looked at the mortality numbers, but it seems to me if you hook and I used to fish all the time when I was a kid. Fishing is nice. But if you hook a fish, you wear it out so that you can catch it. You pull it out of the water. You admire it, take some pictures while it's suffocating a little bit, and then throw it back. It's like torture the fish day.
Yeah, I could see that.
And part of me is like, maybe you should just hit them over the head and eat them if you're going to make them, like, how much suffering are you adding in all seriousness? But anyway,
right.
I get it.
Yeah. I mean, fishing is a big part of sort of the hunting culture we have, and I guess fishing is lumped into that for America. So I think it's at least a positive message of sorts. So, all right. And then on April 20th, we have what is called Cli-Fi Day, which is a climate fiction day that celebrates fiction, literature, and movies that deal with climate change and global warming.
Ooh.
Which is a very interesting thing because it's not really climate fiction anymore. It's more like climate facts. But
yeah, day after tomorrow. Oh, that is the day after tomorrow now.
Yeah. So I think that was kind of a clever, interesting one. That, at least it brings more awareness again to climate change from sort of a media angle. I thought that was cool. And then on May 2nd, we have Fire Day, which is all about not only how fire is used as for cooking and for campfires and stuff, but also kind of fire safety. So the impacts fire can have, destructively, and kind of having a more safety approach to it. So I thought that was kind of a good highlight.
Yeah.
On May 29th, we have Learn About Composting Day, which is literally what it sounds like.
That sounds cool, because I have a half sibling who does a lot of composting, and he was telling me all about how you can actually use that to generate heat for your house if you do it right. Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
How does that work?
So microbes give off a lot of heat while they are metabolizing, and if you have a whole lot of them in one spot, you can get an area up to 130 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how some reptiles incubate their eggs, is they get them under detritus piles, and as they decompose the piles, it keeps the eggs warm. That's cool.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I could get like a compost barrel, because if it's something like a hole in my backyard, I'm not going to do a good job, and it's going to attract animals.
Yeah.
And every time I look at like one of those composting barrels, I'm like, that's kind of expensive.
How much did they go for?
I want to say last time I looked, it was a couple hundred. Like it was enough that as a student, I'm not. I have other things in my purchase list.
Yeah, that's a problem. But long term, maybe not a bad idea.
Yeah, it's something long term I would like to get into.
Yeah.
Composting. Yeah.
All right, June 1st, we have Dinosaur Day, which is all the day just celebrating prehistoric things, you know, our reptilian ancestors and where they came from and all that. I mean, people love dinosaurs, so I feel like I'm a little surprised that's not played up a little more for June. That's just my 2 cents.
Maybe that's the thing. People already love dinosaurs so much. Every day is Dinosaur
That's
Day.
true. Every day is Dinosaur Day. That's like the cop-out answer for any holiday. Every day is. June 15th is Nature Photography Day. So if you remember back to we did like a nature photography episode like way back in last semester in season 1. So that was cool. They kind of just talk about the website of like, you know, taking pictures and everything, but also, you know, tips for capturing wildlife, like be patient, don't get too close, don't put yourself in danger. It's a lot of stuff I remember we talked about on the episode. So kind of admiring nature, but also being respectful of it in like an artistic way.
That's cool. I actually had some pictures I took of the native plants that we used to have here. That were published. I think it was in the Post Dispatch. Dr. What's her name? Dr. Parker was collecting these photos because she wanted to submit them with the story about how our native plants were destroyed.
Okay.
And I was like, I actually took a bunch of photos of those plants.
Do you still have that? Because I know some students that are interested in
I might
starting that. That'd be cool to show them.
And if you ask Dr. Parker, she will have the link.
Okay. All right.
Now, I think the ones she sent me, or the ones that were published, were more the native plants that were mowed down around Frog Lake or Frog Pond. But I also have some photos of the actual old native plant sanctuary that we had.
Oh, yeah, I'd love to see that. Okay, cool.
All right, Becky, get ready for next summer. Because July 10th is Don't Step on a Bee Day. So this is all about appreciating the important role that bees play in our ecosystem. So all the bees, not just the bumbles, also the honeybees and the sweat bees and all that stuff. So
don't smush your wild
Don't
bees.
step on a bee day. I can't believe it's called that. And it's funny because it comes like 2 weeks after National Pollinator Week. So it's like, I feel like you kind of just lumped that in, but I saw that and I had a good chuckle. So, but yeah, bees are important. Definitely don't step on them. Unless you have to euthanize them for labs. So that's a whole different story. But in nature, don't step on the bees.
Yes.
Okay. July 31st, the end of the July era, is World Ranger Day. So kind of like the Conservation Appreciation Day, but focusing on park rangers and all they do in our national parks.
And yet another opportunity to give ranger adjacent people like ourselves gifts.
So I got to start marking this. Got to mark Conservation Day earlier in the year, and then World Ranger Day for Becky presents. All right. I don't know if either of you have ever partaken in this, but on August 15th is Geocaching Day. Have either of you ever been geocaching?
I have.
Okay.
Well, I don't even know what that is.
So geocaching is basically like finding things with a GPS, but they're sort of like little, for lack of a better word, caches, like little areas built like hide things in trees or under like buildings and stuff. And the idea is people put like clues in the GPS coordinate, and you basically with you or your friends go and try and find it. And I've done this once or twice with my brother and his I guess girlfriend, now wife. And the idea is like you'll get a clue about where it is, and then you have like the general search area, so you just like look around for it. So it's actually a lot of fun because people hide interesting things, interesting places, and usually when you find it, there's like a little tube you'll pull out, a piece of paper, and kind of sign it like, "Hey, on this date I found the cache," and then you put it back in the thing.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
there's like websites that are devoted to this. Like there's like a geocaching network I've learned about.
And there's little like tracker objects. I forget if they're still doing it, that they're shaped like bugs.
Oh,
and you can track your bug and see if you find one, you're supposed to take it and then bring it to the next cache.
Oh,
and then whoever
okay.
owns the original bug can like see where it goes.
That's cool. I had not heard about that. I just knew about the signing the paper and putting it back in. It's fun when it's in like parks and stuff. It gets a little more interesting when it's in like the parking lots of like shopping malls, which I've also done some geocaching in. That gets real weird because you get a lot of stairs and like I know the geocache is around here, and it's like under this like light post, and you're like, okay, hope no one sees me like pulling this thing out and like signing it and putting it back in.
I like to think little old lady staring at you like those damn kids in their Pokemon Go.
Yeah. So, or something worse, like, oh, what is this person hiding like money for like a drug deal or something?
Oh, yeah,
like
fair.
that was more where my mind went to.
Forgot we're in a big city.
Yes, we are. This was back on the East Coast. This is in New Jersey, but that doesn't make it any less
Still.
suspicious. But yeah, geocaching is a very cool thing. It's also a very like easy thing to do if like you want like a free activity that you get outside and go do. Because all you need is really your phone and then there's a website.
Love it.
Yes, geocaching is great. I would encourage everyone to try geocaching at some point. All right, next, where are we? Yeah, on August 20th, if you can believe it or not, is World Mosquito Day. So mosquitoes are pesky little creatures, but on Mosquito Day, we celebrate all things mosquito-related, learning about different types of mosquitoes and how to avoid them, talking about ways to get rid of them and how they spread disease. So kind of an awareness day about mosquitoes.
Yeah, do they serve any sort of necessary ecological niche?
So you are asking a more refined version of a question a Boy Scout asked us this this past weekend. Why are there mosquitoes? And the biomass for mosquitoes is just so large that lots and lots of other animals in the food web depend on them, like bats.
Their food.
Yeah. So I've wondered, like, if we were able to make mosquitoes go extinct, could these other organisms adapt to eat something else? What are the what are the bottom-up implications of mosquito removal?
Yeah, I think everyone would love to just like snap their fingers and make mosquitoes just all die, but that would have like tremendous ecological consequences around the world.
Yeah, it's still it's an interesting question because of things like malaria. I don't know.
Yeah,
they convert our blood to bat food. That's
yes.
Yep.
All right, well, that's World Mosquito Day. And then September 1st is Vulture Awareness Day, which is an event to raise awareness about vultures and the ecological roles, particularly in processing and, kind of eating dead stuff. Typically, dead stuff and decaying stuff is kind of gross, but vultures are very important because they handle that for us. So they are the scavengers of the environment.
Yay.
Do you guys know the bird with the broadest wingspan is a vulture?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know which species.
Yes, but I was about to ask, do you know which one?
Probably Andean condor.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
Okay, I'll take your word for it.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't wait it.
It's a condor. That's true. Yeah.
Okay, and then September 25th is Beach Therapy Day. So it's all about a day of kind of just relaxing and getting outside, kind of using the beach because it's a very soothing, natural area.
That sounds good. Let's go do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, book next September 25th, we'll book a Beach Therapy Day. So that's cool because it has all the benefits of like you're getting out in the sun more and getting more vitamin D and again hearing the crashing waves is very soothing. So lots of good connections between nature and mental health for that, which I think is cool. You can also just an excuse to go to the beach. October 7th is Change a Light Day. So this is all about kind of not only changing old light bulbs in your house, but kind of getting more what's the word I'm looking for? Electrically. What are the light bulbs called that are better than the regular ones? LED?
Eco-friendly?
Eco-friendly, yeah. Eco-friendly light bulbs that are better, more energy efficient. That's the word.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I know incandescent are the old ones.
Yeah, so it's about getting like kind of using more energy efficient light bulbs. So kind of a good message. It's a weird one. I don't think anyone would go for that, but
I also sometimes wonder the energy efficient ones, aren't they often made with hard to scavenge materials that then could be bad for the environment and just to acquire them?
I don't know enough about it.
I don't know. October 13th is International Day for Disaster Reduction. So kind of a global awareness about all disaster risks. So hurricanes, floods, tsunamis, all that stuff, kind of being more prepared for it, which is a good thing in general, I think, to be more aware of. So particularly as, kind of start to head in the winter season, there's more snowstorms and stuff. Or if you're in a more tropical area, you have to deal with, El Nino or things like that. Coming up on, all right, we're going towards the end, so a few more. November 6th, this is a little bit of a mouthful, so bear with me. It is the International Day for Preventing the Exploitation of the Environment in War and Armed Conflict.
They need an acronym.
They do. That is a very long holiday.
Important, but the marketing is not there yet.
Yes.
Okay.
It is a day to raise awareness to the effects of war and conflict on the environment. So things like land being destroyed, water being polluted, crops being burned, animals killed, kind of all of those ugly things we deal with in war. So definitely I think it's a very important message. Just like Becky said, it's a mouthful. No one's going to remember that. So, and then a little more happy note. November 17th is Take a Hike Day. So it's all about getting out and going on a hike wherever you want. Just getting outside.
Huh.
That's another one of those badly scheduled holidays, though. It's November. It's cold out.
Well, there's a similar version of it that always occurs on Black Friday in the United States, where you're supposed to get out and go hiking instead of going shopping.
Oh.
And I see that on social media from nature centers and things.
Okay.
So I'm like, what's this one on the 17th? If there's also this Black Friday, get out and take a hike day.
Maybe they're kind of like, it's in the region of Black Friday, so it's like, we'll just kind of lump it in.
Maybe it's a week or something.
Maybe take a hike week. But yeah, it's a interesting day. No, we're on December. December 11th is Mountain Day, so a day designed to focus attention on the importance of mountains and kind of bring nations together about issues affecting mountain environments. I don't exactly understand, like, do either of you have a better sense of, like, what the ecological role of a mountain is? I mean, it's, like, just a type of environment, right?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing that came to mind was all the garbage and dead people on Mount Everest.
Oh, yeah.
Oof, I didn't realize the bodies were often left behind.
I didn't even think about that until you brought it up.
Oh, that's what immediately came to mind, but I don't know. Maybe they have some other goals. But mountaineering in really popular mountains is, people leave their oxygen tanks and they can't always afford to go get bodies. Some of the bodies are like landmarks.
Oh, wow.
That's a little morbid.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, like, it's good to be aware of these things and, like, out in nature, if, people sometimes do perish, unfortunately. I have a weird, deep-seated fear that I will find a dead body. It's somewhere in my life because I don't want to deal with that because it's gross and maybe decaying, and also that I'm now implicated in a crime potentially.
Oh, I think this is a legitimate fear. When I was at Idaho State, there were no less than 2 geology professors that had discovered bodies during field work because they were out in remote areas in the desert. In both cases, I think the individuals had been deceased for a long time, so no one was implicated in a murder.
Yeah. But still, it's just like, I don't want to think about that. But unless on a more cheery note, December 27th, so the last holiday for this segment, is Visit the Zoo Day. So kind of a nice little like thing to do between Christmas and New Year's when like you're with family, and it's usually kind of a low cost thing. Like if you're in St. Louis, the zoo is free, so definitely go check out the zoo whenever you can. Also just kind of getting out, because you're obviously inside eating a lot, so then just get outside and go do something, or at least go somewhere and move around and see cool animals and stuff.
In December, I would also recommend the Christmas bird count. Local Audubon societies usually do that, and they're welcome for anyone to join. Okay.
Is that like constantly running, or is it like a day for that?
It's usually a day or a couple days. When I did it with my local Audubon back in Idaho, we would form little teams, and we had our own area, and you would try to beat the other team with your species list. So we'd all meet at the president's house at the end and drink and compare our lists.
Okay. Very cool.
It's very fun.
So of all those holidays I just listed, any ones you think that should kind of be promoted, be a little more frontward facing for public awareness?
Reschedule the Wetlands Day and then promote that one.
Okay.
I like wetlands. So.
Okay.
Better acronym for the wartime environmental damage.
Yes.
Is also very important.
Yes. That is definitely one. I like the meet out one. I think that could catch on.
Yeah,
sounds like a cool.
That could be fun.
It's not like something sunny day. It's like meet out, where it's kind of like like Black Friday, or has a little snazzier.
You'd even make it a seasonal thing, like seasonal meet out day.
Yeah.
And then people start learning that they can do this more often.
Yeah, that's true.
Totally.
That's true. I just have a last fun question to wrap up this segment. If you could create a science and nature holiday, what would you make, and how would you celebrate it? Anything you want. You heard all the funny, ridiculous ones. Well, they're not ridiculous. I don't want to put shade on them. Some of them are a little more colorful than others.
I don't know. It seems like there's World Snake Day, World Spider. Like there's a whole lot of stuff that already exists.
I'd do one for the phytoplankton.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be a good one.
Okay. How would you celebrate it?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I would like to celebrate what makes so much of our oxygen.
Yeah. Well, the oxygen on Earth apparently could sustain us like 1,000 years, but they drain a lot of our carbon dioxide. That's the important thing.
Okay. That's good to know.
They're very underappreciated, I think, either way.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't realize that. I think if I were to make one, I would do something science and media related, like a science and media day, like connecting maybe like a sci-fi link, or just how like we can connect nature to like digital technology to like reach new people or show them things or like educate them on stuff. So I would theme something around that is what I would do. Which I know we have like nature documentaries and stuff, but like I'd figure something more nuanced out. That's be my approach. Let's see. Anything as I want to wrap up this segment for topic of the show. Do you think these holidays we have are like actually have usefulness in raising public awareness, or do you think they're just kind of like fun holidays?
I think they're mostly just fun.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
But that's not bad.
I almost wonder, like, if you have a meat out day, if that's the day you're supposed to not eat meat, does that like justify you to eat meat on all the other days? I almost
Right.
worry about the implication of that.
Yeah, sometimes I think with the phrase, well, like every day should be insert whatever holiday, so you're more about aware of whatever issue that's going on. I think that's an argument. I think the other argument you can make is that having a specialized day to like promote awareness, sort of in the absence of everything else, kind of brings more attention to it in some ways. 'Cause,
Yeah.
like you should be like, well, every day you should recycle, but at least if like there's a say you promote recycling like Earth Day, you know, at least people are more conscious of it or think about it more, or there's more like big events to draw attention to. That's just my take on it.
Like if everybody's passing out a recycling pamphlet, suddenly you're like,
Yeah.
it's ingrained in
okay.
your mind.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And even maybe as a kid, if you go to those things or exposed to those things as kids, you're like, oh, yeah, I really enjoyed this holiday growing up, and that had a positive impact on me. So now I'm more aware of that issue as an adult.
yeah.
Or,
I remember we did a lot of stuff on like for a week or two surrounding the rainforest in our science class, and then also during other activities in elementary school, and that really sat with me. Like,
okay.
I've never forgotten about the importance of the rainforest.
Yes. Very cool. Okay. And with that, we're going to transition to our last segment. So now it is time for Outside of Science, the segment where, you guessed it, we talk about things outside of science to prove that we are not robots that do science and research 24/7. So I know it's the end of the semester, and with teaching and classes and everything, it's been a little harder to do stuff. But does anyone want to share what they've been up to for the last week or so?
I saw the new Godzilla movie this weekend.
Me too.
Okay.
Webster and I were excited about this.
It is awesome. Like, it is extremely well acted, extremely well cast, extremely well directed. I swear they made each and every actor like do a study of period films from the time. It takes place in like 1940s Japan, end of World War II. Touches on a lot of issues. My friend and I each cried twice, and we weren't even sitting next to each other. It was just a really, really, really good movie. Maybe the first monster movie I've ever seen where I was like, that could possibly be nominated for an Academy Award.
Yeah, it was not what I was expecting. I was going in expecting a popcorn monster like kaiju.
Yeah, I totally was expecting.
And then I was like, oh, we're going to explore post-World War II angst in Japan and PTSD, and I really care about all these characters.
Yeah.
It was
And information control was another issue that came up in the movie.
Okay. I will confess I've never actually seen a Godzilla movie, but this is making me very interested in seeing one. Because most monster movies, it's just big monster destroys the stuff. I mean, like, it's kind of formulaic, if you know what I mean.
the really old Godzilla movies are kind of campy and fun with the guys in rubber suits. Though apparently there's one that's similar to this one that also has kind of like a World War II theme that came from the 1950s.
Oh,
I don't know.
wasn't aware of that one.
Yeah, and I have a harder time with those older movies getting quite as emotionally invested.
Yeah, they're
So-
not filmed as well. Like, it's not as visually exciting. This
So-
one was beautiful. Like,
Then we have this weird American one with Matthew Broderick in it, where Godzilla is like this lizard creature that takes over New York and lays eggs in the
I haven't seen that one.
Okay.
Madison Square Garden.
I saw Godzilla and King Kong, and that was more of the classic monster
Yeah.
flick. But and they're like actually the good guys in that.
But our most recent Godzilla films, I don't know who made them, but the ones that are in English, like what you were talking about, Godzilla versus Kong, and then there's one or two before that. I was just not invested in any of the human stories in those at all. I just wanted to see the dinosaurs like break things.
Yeah.
But this one was really good. This
Okay.
is like a good movie to watch and discuss. And
Okay.
like I said, I agree with Webster. I think it could win some things.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll have to check it out then. Because currently the one movie for the rest of the year I want to see is the Hunger Games prequel.
Oh,
Oh, I
Yeah.
heard that was not good. My friend.
I've heard
Oh, no.
mixed things.
My
I've
friend
heard
said he walked out,
some
so-
people said it's not so good. Some people said it's actually the best Hunger Game movie. I've heard polarizing perspectives. So we will see.
Yeah. And then, one quick note, the Godzilla movie is Japanese English subtitles. So
Oh, okay.
if subtitles are
So
not
if you
your
don't know
thing,
how to read,
If you don't watch anime, this might be throwing you for a loop. How about you, Becky? What have you been up to? Besides
watching Godzilla. Still dealing with the plumbing at my house. That's been
okay.
great.
Okay.
But we can use our water again now, so that's good.
That's good. That's good.
So I can take showers and wash clothes. So.
Yes. You also did something very cool this weekend on Saturday morning.
Oh, that's right.
It is technically science related, but it's community involvement, so I'm counting it.
And you helped me with that. So
Yes.
I guess once a year there's it's called STEM University. And Scouts of America come to University of Missouri St. Louis, and they do lots of different science classes to help them with some of their merit badges. So Jeremy and I and a bunch of folks from our lab took on the insect study workshop and taught kids about insects.
Yeah, we did lots of fun hands-on stuff. We let them dissect crickets. We let them go see a bee colony down in the lab. What else did we do?
They ID'd bugs.
We ID'd bugs. Yeah, so we got a lot of hands-on fun stuff. The kids seemed engaged, so that was important.
Yeah.
So
it was good.
Yeah, good time. And now if we have to do it next year, we know how to.
Yes.
So we have the groundwork laid, so it's very good. And you did a great job, Becky. I was very impressed how you just set it up and kind of controlled the classroom and did all that stuff. It was really cool to watch.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually.
Yeah, and I got a lot of photos for social media for like the Harris Center and all that stuff to share and be like, look at how awesome we are. We're doing cool stuff.
Yeah, if people are really into it, maybe we should suggest our own merit badge workshops, because they kind of came to us and said, could you do mammals or insects?
Right.
And we're like, well, insects, we could do that.
Yeah, Dr. Dunlap and I talked a little bit, and she was like, we could probably do a mammal study. I was like, between the two of us, we could easily do a mammal study. Like,
yeah, when I looked at the requirements, they had to spend so much time in the field, and they needed to do like a taxidermy prep for a museum mount. So looking at that, I was like, we could do that, but
for the mammal study?
Yeah, but we're not going to hit as many of their check
requirements,
boxes as the insect study.
So they had to do a taxidermy prep for a museum mount with a mammal.
Yep.
Yeah, some of these merit badge requirements are actually quite involved for the kids.
That's quite involved. Yeah.
But I wonder if there's like a micro merit badge, because our department would be really well set up to do that.
There's gotta be, I mean, I could look through the merit badges, but there's probably something that we could do like links to microbes with, and if kids were really interested in that, you never know.
I worry microbes aren't quite outdoors enough. Like I feel like everything Boy Scouts or like
well, they had to
the
do like
outdoors
engineering badges. That was probably the most popular class I saw on the list.
There is a soil and water conservation merit badge, which you could easily link microbes to.
Yeah.
Ooh, if we did
I would teach. I'd definitely be interested in teaching that.
If we did water conservation, there could be a micro portion, a macroinvertebrate portion, and then a water biogeochemistry portion. Like we could collaborate. Anyway.
These are things we can discuss for next year, because I'm guessing we're going to do it again next December. Or they're going to have, UMSL's going to host again, right?
I would assume so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that for next year.
Cool.
Besides helping Becky with the merit badge thing on Saturday, last week I told you all on this show we had our volleyball finals that night. We did not win.
Aww.
We got destroyed by the other team, which is apparently they're not even students. They're just like a family, because their name is We Are Family, and they just like play in the indoor volleyball league. They're very good. And they have like a lead spiker who definitely gave us a run for our money. Had to block a lot of shots, kind of bang my knees on the floor a little more than I would have liked to. But
so you're still on your quest for the T-shirt.
Yes, we're still on our quest for the T-shirt. So, alas, we did not get it this semester.
I'm sorry.
But there's other semesters. I'm still going to be here for a little while longer. So, I know the undergrad who is leading the team is leaving after next semester. So, I might take over the Awesome Aces, which is the name of the team, which is kind of this like hodgepodge of undergrads and grads. And
I love it.
Yeah, it's a continuing legacy of sorts, which I think is cool. But we didn't win volleyball. That's okay. We had fun, and we got Soren now. So like, if the leader's leaving, then we'll get a new person. Then Machal will be back next year, and we'll get him as a prof and all that.
You're gonna have some tall people.
I know Machal's got a really good serve and spike. So I kind of want him back for that reason. That's the only reason I want to talk to Machal back.
Please come back from Ecuador to play volleyball.
Yes, I was gonna be excited, because if we had won the T-shirts, I would have like taken a picture and be like, Machala, we did it. We won the league, but we didn't win. So there's that. And then that was last Tuesday. And then Saturday night, I went to the Deck the Hall Ball, which is like this concert put on by Y98, and they had 3 performers there. So it's my 3rd concert I've been to in my life. They had JP Sachs, who I didn't know who was, but he was really good. They had Philip Phillips, and then the reason I went to the concert is because Train was playing, and Train was headlining it.
Oh, wow.
Train is one of my favorite bands of all time. They're not Owl City level for me in terms of like the tippity top, but it's like top 5 easily. I love Train.
Did you experience the post-concert depression again?
I did not. So
okay.
I seriously was going to text you, Becky, and be like, hey, I just went to another concert. I need you to text me on Sunday night, Monday morning to check in, because I might not be okay. I was fine. So like I had a great time at the concert, but I did not experience the same quite high and then crash. So it was like, I kind of, was bracing myself like, you might feel a little bad tomorrow. And then I felt fine. I was like, okay, normal life. We got to go back to, doing the dishes and prepping for school and stuff. So I was like, it was fine. So I think just having that mindset was helpful. But no, Train was totally awesome. since they've been around since like the 1990s, I think. Like they played a bunch of songs that like I had heard when I was like 6 or 7.
Aw,
So like
that's
Meet
cool.
Virginia was net from 1999. I was like 6 when I heard that, and Drops of Jupiter was 2001. I heard that when I was like 8. So like
my
playing that
God.
was like brought a lot of good like childhood memories back, and they also had their newer stuff too. But it was a fantastic concert. I had a great time. So yeah, I'm really enjoying concerts. Definitely, you can tell I'm starting to get into this.
St. Louis is an awesome music city.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, well, we're the only big city around for like 200 miles. So
Yeah, that's
kind of
true.
helps.
It does help. But sometimes though we kind of get overlooked for Chicago because everyone's like, oh, it's like a bigger
Yeah.
city.
Yeah,
so
and
we're like,
then
just
people
go
end
there.
up having to drive or bus up to
Yeah.
Chicago to see it.
I was sad Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds went to Chicago, did not come to St. Louis. And I didn't want to drive.
Yeah, it is quite a drive. Right. Any last thoughts for Outside of Science, for anything we've been up to?
Maybe you
No.
want to go to more concerts, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, go to more concerts.
Go to more
Go see Godzilla.
All right, cool. Well, that's going to wrap up another episode of That Science and Nature Show. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Thank you, as always, to Becky and Webster for joining me to talk about science. We'll be back in the spring. We'll figure out plans for all that, but we'll be back on the radio most likely. Well, no, not most likely. We will be back on the radio at a new time and date and all that stuff, and we'll figure all that out, and I'll post on the socials. Remember, you can listen to past episodes of the show on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Amazon. Until then, my name is Jeremy Howard. You've been listening to That Science and Nature Show, and we are out.
Bye. Bye.